Chris Sims, our Bucknell two-sport athlete. Really, he's Primal Fam. He's been Primal Fam for a long time. What impressed me about you was your immediate, I want to say, acceptance of whatever information I was feeding you. There wasn't a hesitation. You were like, I'm in, let's go. And every day you did it, and you got back on the field, and you went back to your business.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
How did it feel to you, Chris, like the difference?
Definitely right after Eric gave me like the first initial cues, I started to notice a difference in my running form. I started to feel a little bit more balanced. I started to feel a little bit more comfortable.
You don't have to be injured to benefit from a gait analysis, right? Like, it's performance.
No matter what level of a runner you are, there's always areas to improve that running economy.
So like having these exercises, being able to like keep my knee in a good position, being able to help my hips and my glutes, and stuff like that, and take those with me when I go to school, when I go home, when I work out, is really important. So yeah.
Welcome to the Dr. J.J. Thomas Podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Dr. J.J. Thomas Podcast. I'm J.J. Thomas. Today we have our second part of the Chris Sims running gait analysis. Last week, if you guys saw the episode, Dr. Eric Abramowitz, my friend and colleague, did a gait analysis, live gait analysis on Chris Sims, our Bucknell two-sport athlete. Really, he's Primal Fam. He's been Primal Fam for a long time. So we're kind of hashing it out, talking about the things we saw. I wanted to let you guys get to know Chris a little bit better because Chris is a really special person, and you can see it by the way he runs, but more so when you get a chance to talk with him and just see what a great person he is. Kind of lends you to understand. I think often when I work with high-level athletes, I often see a trend that high-level athletes, high performers, are often just really awesome people. So I wanted to get to show that on the podcast a little bit. So thanks, guys, for coming.
Absolutely.
For coming over.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can we start with you, Chris? Like, if you could just tell the listeners a little bit about your story, how you got into the sports you did, and your path to be a Bucknell athlete, and a little bit of your background.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks.
So I went to the Haverford School right down the street, where obviously there's a strong sports culture. And growing up, I always watched some of those star athletes coming through. So I was like, this is definitely something that I want to do. And then once I got to high school, it was kind of where everything took off, and I just started to really excel in sports in school. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I first heard about you, I was working with one of your friends at the time. I hadn't met you yet, and you were playing. It was during football season, and you were getting a lot of calf cramping.
Yeah.
And it was really cute. I got a message from one of your friend's moms, and she was like, "We have one of our best athletes on the team. He's not able to finish the game out because he's getting these horrible calf cramps. Can you help him?" And that's how we first met. So, and right off the bat, like, what impressed me about you was your immediate, I want to say, acceptance of whatever information I was feeding you. Like, a lot of times when we work with athletes, they have a hard time sometimes, we're very out of the box. We treat the body as a system here, which is a little bit different than most physical therapists.
Right.
And I think sometimes athletes look at us when we say to them, I want you to do this motion where you're hopping like a frog, and they look at us like, what the heck? But you didn't hesitate. Like, I remember looking at you, and I think we discovered that your calf cramping was really coming from like a nerve tension in your back. Mm-hmm. And part of it at the time was from tightness in your hip flexors, right?
Right, yeah.
And so I was like, let's do this core stability exercise, frog or hops, which you guys I'm sure know by now. And there wasn't a hesitation. You were like, I'm in, let's go. And every day you did it, and you got back on the field, and you went back to your business.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then years later, I got the picture of you doing it at Bucknell, which is the best.
Yeah, of course.
But a little bit more about your journey through Bucknell and knowing what type of athlete you are and the type of person you are, to just every time you come into a roadblock, you find a way to problem solve around it. Can you share with us some other stories you've had while at school where there might have been, something you had to work through? I know, 3 hours away, you're not getting here all the time. Right. How are you working through stuff when you're at school?
Yeah. So a lot of times when I'm at school and I kind of hit the roadblock, kind of just going back to whatever you had taught me when I first started coming here. So the froggers and all of those different stretches to make sure that my core and my hips are in line and stuff like that. I definitely did hit a roadblock my freshman year when I got knee surgery, and I kind of didn't know where to go. And thankfully, I was able to come back here and actually do a lot of work with you, which was great, which got me right back on the track, like pretty soon. So
You're giving us too much credit. Because Chris, I mean, like I said, he's so easy to work with because you tell him something and he does it like to the T. Right, Eric?
Absolutely.
So Eric and Chris started working together recently too. And was this the first time, this bout? Or you've worked with Chris after his knee, I think, a little bit too, right?
Yeah, we spent some time working on his knee post-operatively, and then after the last couple of years, I guess, came back, wanted to take a look at the running form and see if we can fine-tune some things for the last year. Yeah,
so what prompted, I know we were talking about, that's the running gait analysis got prompted. Eric was telling me that he evaluated Chris, I think, for Achilles tendinopathy.
Yep.
Is that right? And he wanted to take a look at his gait, and I was like, let's do it on the podcast. Let's share it with everybody. So can you tell me a little bit about how that transpired?
Yeah, so Chris came in. We had plans to do the running gait assessment actually on his first visit. And after hearing the history, hearing your symptoms, I know we were having the Achilles issue. We're still getting some cramping. And went through an assessment, and I did part of that runner's readiness assessment that we talked about last week during the treadmill portion of this. I figured, hey, there's some things we're definitely going to end up getting into from a running standpoint. And I want to make sure, outside of our traditional assessment strategies, I wanted to take a look at those things and get, again, a look under the hood. And we ended up finding that some of the single leg stability exercises that we were testing, we noticed a lot of that knee valgus positioning happening and glute inhibition and misfiring. So that kind of led me to getting back to some of those core and trunk related components to the Achilles and calf, right? Yeah. Many times we've treated Chris's calf to try to address the Achilles pain with not as much success when we were actually tracking back up to the trunk and spine. So knowing that we were finding a deficiency at the hip, it was one of those components that just made me resort back to, hey, what worked for Chris in the past? What were the foundational movements that we really addressed early on that were impactful, and reinforced that plan.
Yeah, and it was cool. You know, I was in the background watching Eric do Chris's gait analysis, and it was cool, really, to see instantly how when you gave him just one simple cue, it looked like Chris's running form became pretty much effortless. Like, Chris is a great athlete, so he already looks great running, but then, you know, when they worked on one fine-tuned little detail, it was like you were effortless there. How did it feel to you, Chris, like the difference?
Yeah, definitely right after Eric gave me like the first initial cues was when I started to notice a difference in my running form. I started to feel a little bit more balanced. I started to feel a little bit more comfortable. And then it kind of popped up on the numbers too, which was great to see right away as well. So.
Yeah, I love the system and how it highlights the numbers. That credit to our friend Doug Adams there, who created that camera system. And has really, it's made our lives so much infinitely easier in terms of like the patients can see the data to, like, you feel better, but then you see the numbers and you're like, wow, this is really worth my time, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of things with running when, you know, traditionally when people start running, they're not looking for a running coach. They just say, I'm going to go for a run. I want to work out, get some cardio in, and they just go and just run the way their body feels like it should be running. Mm-hmm. So there's very little feeling of objective information when a lot of this is angles and positioning, and there's a lot of objective data behind the scenes that really can influence their efficiency. So versus saying, hey, Chris, lean forward and land on your toes, and then saying, I kind of feel that, I'm not sure. But right. when you can tie the feeling to something that is concrete, and you're looking at it, it reinforces that feeling of peace to trust it, and really kind of hammer that.
It gives you real-time feedback, right? Like, Chris is like, I think I'm doing it, and then the numbers show it. And you're like, boom, okay, good, that's the feeling. Exactly. It's in your brain now, it's input-output. We probably say input-output on every single show because it's true. Everything is input-output. Yep. What about, you touched on something that I think is really valuable. I think Chris's gait analysis was prompted by an Achilles issue that came up, but really, I think a undervalued or underestimated piece of gait analysis is that you don't have to be injured to benefit from a gait analysis, right? Like, it's performance.
Correct.
Like, you can look at these numbers, you can look at this data, and hey, why not prevent an injury number one, prevent an injury by making sure that your form is good and that you have all the components to give you the capacity to run well. But number two, make you run faster, run better, run longer, with less breakdown, right?
Yeah. I mean, no matter what level of a runner you are, there's always areas to improve that running economy. I mean, we have professional runners, we have amateur runners, we have someone that just picked up running yesterday, right? And,
Yeah.
you know, we're able to find things even in the higher level athletes. It might be surprising, but those athletes, they're so good at doing what they do.
Yes.
And their bodies are so generally efficient and strong that they can kind of get by, not kind of, they're the best of the best,
Yeah.
but they get by with these inefficiencies
Yeah.
because they are in the shape they're in.
And they're master
right?
compensators.
They're the best,
Yeah.
right? The elite athletes are the best compensators, hands down. So when we start breaking down their form, you know, and we see this across all sports, right? It's
Yeah.
not just running. There's almost always something that when you know what to look for from a movement standpoint, we're going to find stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So again, no matter what level of a runner you are, we're going to be able to fine tune some things to make sure that, you know, we're improving that running economy, decreasing some of the stress that the ground's hitting you back with, and therefore reducing the risk of injury and helping you stay out there longer.
Chris, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how you felt with exercises that Eric gave you after your findings of both the pre-gait analysis work and the gait analysis itself. How'd you feel in those exercises? Like, what came up for you?
Yeah, I think obviously the exercises are something that are really important so that you have something that you can take with you after looking at numbers like that. Because I think a lot of times it's like you see those numbers and it's just like, okay, like Eric said, like lean forward and pick your knees up. But like it's sometimes it's not that easy.
That's right.
So like having these exercises, being able to like keep my knee in a good position, being able to help my hips and my glutes, you know, and stuff like that, and take those with me when I go to school, when I go home, when I work out, is really important. So yeah.
Awesome. That, like I said early on, that's one of the things I love about you is that you will do them. Like and it's good for your fellow athletes to see them too, because
Right.
I think, as I mentioned earlier, you've always been the athlete that isn't afraid to go out on a limb and do something what might seem a little wacky to people. Like I always think of this one athlete I saw years and years ago. I went to give him like Frogger stretch, which if you guys remember that one, you're like spread eagle on the mat. It's a little awkward. And so not Frogger hops, but Frogger stretch. And this kid, he was a high school kid. And I like went to show him and he looked at me and he goes, "Are you trying to get me beat up in the gym?" And I was like, "I'm sorry, but you need this, you know, but you never cared." So I know that you're going to go back and do this with your fellow athletes and hopefully some of them will realize maybe they benefit from it too.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's awesome. So I already know you and I know you're like a high achiever in pretty much everything you do. So I got to ask, what's next for you? What's your senior at Bucknell, right? Yeah. And I know I've kind of gone on about his athletic abilities, but those of you that don't know Chris, he's also very intelligent and successful in academics as well. So what's next for you post-college?
Yeah. So right now this summer I'm doing an internship with the Philadelphia Flyers,
So cool.
working with their marketing team, which is very, very cool. I get to work a bunch of events for them and work with their marketing and sales team, which is great. So after college, I'm looking to work in sports. I would like to get in like some scouting, some front office work with either a football team or a basketball team. So
cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
I know. We were talking when we were off air about how like certain horses just need to run. Like and I think you were saying like you did an office job last year, right?
Yeah.
And you could see where that would be great for some people, but you were sort of like, nah, I need to run.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I need to be with athletes. I need to be working with people that are all working towards one goal, and that's where that teamwork comes in and where sports comes into play. So
Yeah. Well, whoever picks you up is going to be really lucky to have you, Chris.
Thank you.
Honestly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So maybe we'll have a follow-up sometime in like the fall when you come home for Thanksgiving or
Yeah.
something. See how the transition from doing the work that we did today goes for you.
Yeah.
And stay tuned. Follow Chris. What is your Instagram?
Chris Sims 11.
Chris Sims 11, I know that. Follow him on social media. Keep an eye out. He's Primal Fam, so we'll be posting. He's had some recent articles through Bucknell come out and things like that. So always a good story to follow. And if you have any questions on the gait analysis, please reach out to me or Dr. Eric Abramowitz. And that's it. Stay tuned. Talk to you soon. Thanks guys.
JJ.
Thanks, JJ.